championship.
Gibson swings. This is gonna be a home run. Unbelievable! I don't believe what I just saw.
Two powerful NFL forces have merged. Jerry Jones, the restless owner of the Dallas Cowboys, who have managed just 15 victories in 3 seasons, has given the head coaching reins to Bill Parcells, a man whose distaste for losing may be even stronger than his own. How this unlikely union of strong passions and convictions will play out is the subject of high speculation. Chris Fowler gives us a deep look into one of these men, a passionate 2-time Super Bowl winner whose dominant will struck thunder and lightning into the hearts of 3 NFL teams.
There is nobody that I've ever covered that pushes the motivational buttons better than he does.
He can motivate anybody to do anything. I mean, I've been in restaurants with him where he will motivate the waiter about how he can do his job better.
He has an extraordinary ability to get inside a player's head for knowing what makes a player tick.
He said guys who know who they are usually turn out to be the best players in the NFL. Know what you can do and what you can't do. And you know what your problem is? You don't know who you are. I was hurt, but it really motivated me.
Sad to say that at first I really didn't understand it, but as I've grown as a player, I really can understand why he did some of the things that he did.
He helps players find things inside themselves that they didn't know were in there. He helps players be better than even they thought they could be.
Over 15 years as a head coach in the NFL, Parcells turned around 3 franchises, the Giants, the Patriots, and the Jets. Part of his technique involved unique methods of motivation.
Before a playoff game against the Rams, he went to a very elaborate ruse of putting 2 airplane tickets on Lawrence Taylor's stool. And Parcells says to him, I want you to go down to New Orleans, and I want you to give that return ticket to Pat Swilling, linebacker with the Saints.
You send him up here with your helmet, and you stay down there, and you play for the Saints this week, and we'll let him play against Pankey.
He can play Irv Pankey. You can't touch Irv Pankey. He dominates you. So I don't want you to play in this game. And Taylor that week went out, and I was at the game. He ate Pankey alive.
He'll make some type of comment about another player in order to make me play. If it's Pat Swilling, if it's Hugh Green, or if it's the Washington Redskins, or you can't catch Randall Cunningham no more.
I had an empty gas can that says, do you have any gas left in that tank? And it's signed BP Bill Parcells. To me, that's something that not a lot of coaches would do. He found a way to put some humor in the situation and try to get a point across. Okay, I need you for the stretch.
There's this untapped reservoir there that he can push you across. If a player's tired, no, you're not tired. You can give 20% more. If a player's hurt, no, the pain's in your head. You can push through that.
I felt obligated, as much as anything, to make these guys play to their potential as players. And I always felt like that if I didn't do that, that they would eventually resent me.
But airline tickets and gas cans were rare highlights to a relentless regimen in which Parcells pushed his players physically and psychologically.
He would literally be about 2 feet behind me. Come on, Sims, get the play out. Come on, get him going, let's go. Jesus, are you gonna complete a pass today?
He would pick like 2 or 3 guys, and you know you were in the barrel that day, and he would ride you.
You know, they say pressure busts pipes. You know, he wants to see if you're going to be that pipe that busts.
You can handle Bill Parcells' pressure, or you can handle fourth quarter pressure when it's less than 2 minutes to go in the game and you need a touchdown.
Everyone is competing for their jobs, and it just creates such an air of tension that some players hate it.
Most of his players that have had any success in the system have hated him. I'm not saying strongly, just like hated him.
When I played for him, I totally hated him. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I wanted to kill Bill.
The seeds of Parcells' confrontational coaching style were sown in his childhood.
His dad had the same unique way of needling people and getting under their skin.
My mother was Italian. She had a little volatility, and she was quick to attack your body parts if you weren't in line. I never feared confrontation. I kind of had grown up with confrontation, and I think confrontation have served me well.
When we were playing really, really well as a team, he was miserable because he needs friction. He lives on that friction. He needs adversity, and he's got to have a spat going with the player, and if there's no adversity there, by God, he'll create it. When we won and won well, he was, about as ugly as you could get.
He can be an ass. I mean, he can be as tough as they come.
If you get embarrassed, if you can't take a ribbon, if you can't take a little bit of punishment, don't walk into a room with Bill Parcells, because he'll eat you alive.
I remember leaving his office after he confronted me about the way I was playing one time, and I just felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to leave that place and go home and just never see that man again.
But for all the complaints about Parcells, he knew how to win.
Once he got his first Super Bowl and then got a second Super Bowl, forget it. Everybody wanted on board.
We used to call him Chief Two Rings because, those 2 rings make such a difference. They validate what he is and how he does it.
After 8 seasons and 2 Super Bowl victories as head coach of the New York Giants, Parcells stood astride the NFL. His success made him the league's Pied Piper. In the era of free agency, 11 players followed him from the Giants to the Patriots, and 11 from the Patriots to the Jets.
You see a band of followers following him around the league. It's almost like little nomads.
Players are loyal to him because he's loyal to them.
You may chafe at Parcells' grip on you. When all is said and done, you'll play hurt, you'll play valiantly, you'll play better than what you are. You will be basically a Green Beret for Bill Parcells.
He wants players who will fall on your sword for him.
He called and said, I think I'm going to have a job by Friday. Do you want to go? I said, yeah. So I called my wife and I said, Bill's going to come back and coach. And she said, oh, where's that? I said, oh, I don't know. She said, you didn't even ask where we're going? I said, no. I just wanted to work for him.
Bill was a great football player, outstanding basketball player, and a tremendous baseball player. If he were coming out of school today, he would have signed a big bonus contract for baseball.
The oldest of 4 children born to Ida and Charles Parcells, Bill was born on August 22, 1941. As a 3-sport athlete at Riverdale High School in Oradell, New Jersey, he grew up in an atmosphere where there were no excuses, especially to his father.
He told me one night, this was in basketball, he said, if you're going to play like you played tonight, he said, you ought to just give the game up. Give it up because you really don't have any concept of what's going on. And that hurt me.
Bill would fail at something, and then he would say, well, Dad, I tried my best. And his father would say, get no medals for trying.
Ask his players, ask anybody, he'll quote his father 1,000,000 times. My father always said, complaint department's on the 4th floor. That kind of stuff.
If his father introduced him to the concept of teamwork, Parcells learned the importance of self-restraint from his high school basketball coach, Mickey Corcoran.
I occasionally would mouth off to the officials. He put me in line on that.
Several times, I had to throw him out of the gym for being overly demonstrative, kicking the basketball.
He was sort of blown away by the autocratic way that Mickey did things. Parcells realized at an early age that authority has to be absolute.
After a frustrating loss in his sophomore year, Parcells responded in a way that reminded his coach of a man he had played for years earlier at a school called St. Cecilia's, Vince Lombardi.
I said, Bill, you did a great job. Terrific. You left it all out on the floor. Yeah, it was a moral victory. And at 15 years of age, he looked at me and said, Coach, there are no moral victories. You either win or you lose. And we lost. Kind of remarkable for a 15-year-old kid.
Lombardi was tough, and he was smart. Parcells the same way.
If you look at how they ran their programs, the iron-fisted way, when necessary, totally tear a guy down and build him back up.
Just like Lombardi won at Green Bay, Bill has won big games, championships, with players that aren't going to win someplace else under another coach.
After a standout career as a linebacker at Wichita State, Parcells was selected by Detroit in the 7th round of the 1964 NFL Draft. Cut in training camp, he gave up hopes of playing in the pros and accepted an assistant coach's position at Hastings College in Nebraska.
Nebraska Wesleyan was a team that was about as good as we were. They like to run this certain bootleg pass. I work on it in practice. We go over it quite a few times. They drive the ball down there pretty early in the game, and they run this bootleg.
I just bit off the fake. I went the wrong way. I was out of position, and they scored. And Bill was beside himself.
Jack Giddings really was the first one that got the full blast of a Parcells chewing. He chewed on him and chewed on him and chewed on him.
Jack, damn it, how many times do I have to go over this with you? I'm going on pretty hard on the kid.
Finally, I said, Bill, that's our best player. He's had enough. Bill said, well, but Coach, we worked, and I let about that much get out.
He said, well, you didn't go over it enough because he didn't get it. That stopped me in my tracks, and that put it back on what coaching's about. I hadn't gone over it enough, or a player who was as dedicated as Jack Giddings would have executed it the right way.
Parcells was an assistant at 6 schools in 14 seasons, finally landing a head coaching job at the Air Force Academy in 1978. Following a 3-8 season, he took a job as the linebackers coach of the Giants. But under pressure from his family, Parcells quit after minicamp and returned to Colorado Springs.
Well, let me tell you about my daughters. I feel sorry for them in some respects because they had to move 8 or 9 times and pick up as young girls and go to another school and adjust and acclimate to every single part of this country. It's just a question of priorities then. I had 3 daughters that were important and a wife, and I just had to do something. Unfortunately, it cost me a job that I really had waited for a long time.
But the cost of giving up football weighed heavily on Parcells in 1979, when he split his time selling real estate and directing the activities at a local country club. A year later, he was back in the game as the linebackers coach of the Patriots. The following season, he rejoined the Giants, this time as defensive coordinator.
His worst fear is to go into a situation where he doesn't feel in complete control and doesn't have all the answers.
Bill hated to fly. He's such a control freak that if he couldn't fly that plane, he had to put his life and his trust in somebody else. And I think that's what bothered him the most.
Many times he'll sit with the pilot in the cabin. I don't know if he's given the pilot any information, but he sits there and it feels more comfortable.
This is something I've dealt with for all my life. And I've had a fear of flying since I was young, and I haven't been able to overcome it. But I go because it's a challenge to my ego.
Nothing could have been more of a challenge than being given the reins of the Giants in 1983. The rookie NFL head coach performed no miracles as New York won just 3 games. But beyond football, there was far greater loss. Both his parents died in a span of 6 weeks.
It was a very tough year personally, but at the end of the day, nobody really cares what your problems are. Nobody cares why you're losing.
Bill Parcells almost didn't get through his first year with the Giants. That's well documented.
George Young was wondering if he was going to do it and was starting to look for other people.
I think that changed my whole mindset on my profession. And I know I forged a new determination because I can remember mentally saying, well, if they're going to get rid of me, they're going to get rid of me doing it my way.
By opening day of 1984, Parcells had purged almost half the Giants roster from the previous year.
It was like a bus station around there. Every time you turn around, you look for your friend. He's on his way out of there. He was firing people, getting rid of people, bringing people in.
He knew what he wanted his team to be, what he wanted it to look like, what he wanted it to act like, how he wanted it to play.
Once they got into the playoffs in '84, players wanted to come to the Giants. They wanted to play for him because they could see that something good was going to happen there.
There was no doubt in our minds that we were, going to the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl champions are the Giants.
It was very sweet to be able to give him a double soaking of Gatorade, raise him on our shoulders and carry him off the field.
After leading the Giants to a second Super Bowl victory in January of 1991, Parcells retired because of health problems and underwent open-heart surgery. He spent the next 2 seasons as an NFL analyst for NBC. In 1993, he signed to coach New England, but after 3 seasons, Parcells found himself in a power struggle with owner Robert Kraft.
96, he wanted a strong defensive player. Bobby Greer, who was the personnel head, wanted this game-breaking wide receiver from Ohio State by the name of Terry Glenn.
Kraft felt he had to back Bobby Greer because Greer wanted a wide receiver.
With the 7th pick in the first round, the New England Patriots select Terry Glenn, wide receiver, Ohio State.
The drafting of Terry Glenn was really sort of the beginning of the end for Bill Parcells.
He uttered the phrase, if you're going to cook the meal, you ought to be able to shop for the groceries. And that sums up the whole thing. Yes, it was about control.
Despite the front office turmoil, Parcells led the Patriots to the Super Bowl, losing to the Packers 35-21. 5 days later, he quit his job. Without total control, the obsessive coach often sought comfort in his lifelong belief in superstition.
He's the most superstitious man I've ever met. He had to have things done his way, and superstition was a part of his way.
I sat in the same seat for 13 years. On the plane, same seat for 13 years.
The players could jerk his chain. If we were on a streak of some sort, Harry would go to Bill and say, hey, Bill, you know, we were out of practice 30 minutes early last week. Why are we still out here? He'd blow the whistle, everybody off. You know, just like that.
He went to get some dental work done on a Tuesday, and they won that week. So he went back to the dentist the next Tuesday.
All he did was walk in, sit down in the same chair that he was sitting in the past few Tuesday nights at the exact same time. He sat down for about 30 seconds, said goodbye to everybody, and walked out.
In the same 4 weeks, I made my doctor wear the same corduroy pants. They were dirty. I wouldn't even let him wash them.
When they made the Super Bowl for the second time with the Giants, he tracked down the pilot of the plane from their first Super Bowl trip to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena in 1986.
The pilot had already retired. So what Bill worked out is they would bring him back, he would be recertified, and he would fly them to the Super Bowl.
You think, why is this future Hall of Fame coach doing little nonsense things like that? But it's all part of the mystique, the fabric of who Parcells is.
In the late 1960s, 2 fiery young coaches at West Point formed what would become a lifelong bond. Bill Parcells was in charge of the defensive line, Bob Knight of the basketball team. They scouted for each other, and they watched each other's back.
We were playing Rutgers, and Bill went to the game with us. And we get beat at the buzzer. Bill is in the corner of the locker room, and he said, when we're walking off the floor, some guy leaned over the balcony and took a swipe at you with a program. He missed you, but he came down kind of over the balcony, and I just reached up and cold cocked him. He said, I knocked him back up in the seats, and I think the cops are looking for me.
Parcells' dominant nature was never on fuller public display than during his bouts with the media.
I used to love his press conferences. Bill Parcells was a master. When he came in the room, he set the tone and never let it get out of control.
I don't want to talk about anything but this season. We'll talk about next season, okay?
He didn't have any time for people in the media that didn't know what they were doing.
I could feel my anger at those guys as they would ask the question, you trying to antagonize me? Oh, well, then what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do?
He tries to be the bully, the press conference bully.
Oh, give me a break with that dumbass question. That's a dumbass question.
He will have no problem denigrating you in front of everybody.
Explain to me the purpose of the question, if you have one.
He was oftentimes testy, used the media more than any coach in NFL history.
The more time he spends with us, the less time we're in there pestering one of his guys about why he dropped 3 balls last week.
I'm not saying anything. You're saying he did say it. When you write for the paper, is it credible?
To get the good stuff, They were willing to put up with the condescension and with the manipulation and with the intimidation, because his best was the best I've ever known.
Sometimes you have to get hit in the face with a skunk 3 or 4 times before you smell it.
As a reporter, he wanted you to challenge him. He would bark at you, and he wanted you to fight back. If you didn't fight back, he would bully you.
Give me a break with that crap. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a jerk.
He called that kid the next day and apologized. I mean, this big, rough, tough character who was very dominant at that press conference with that kid wanted to go out of his way to apologize. He felt bad about it.
In 1986, at least one fan felt the softer side of Parcells. Stephen McDonald of the NYPD was rendered a quadriplegic when he was shot in the line of duty. Parcells visited him in the hospital and maintained contact through the years.
He came right over to greet me, and he was just a real good guy. I want to say affectionate, concerned about my situation. Was I being taken care of?
He's an inspiration to me, this guy. What happened to him, and see how he's been able to make a life under very, very difficult circumstances. He's a guy I admire very much.
For many who have played for him, the feeling of admiration was returned. Several days after stepping down as head coach of the Jets, Parcells discovered the 1999 Team MVP trophy given to Curtis Martin sitting on his desk.
With a little note from Curtis Martin saying, "Bill, I just wanted you to have this trophy. You've meant so much to my career. Love, Boy Wonder." And Bill said he just sat down in his chair, started crying like a baby.
I didn't grow up with my father in the home, and I never really had no one just look out for me and really be concerned about me. And when I look at Parcells, I know that he had a genuine concern about me.
When I was going through a divorce and a tough time in my life, he was there for me.
Pepper Johnson got hurt one time, and he was genuinely heartbroken about him not being able to play the rest of the year with us.
He took the entire team, all 45 guys, and squeezed them into the trainer's room just to be around Pepper and make Pepper feel as if he were part of the team for the post-game speech.
Sam Gash was in a hospital bed when they won the AFC Championship game, and Parcells accepts the trophy and says, "This is for Sam Gash."
In his final goodbye to the Jets players, Parcells read a poem that reflected his simple philosophy.
When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what the man has to say. For it isn't your parents, your children, or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fella whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass.
Someone interrupt a lucrative second career as a television analyst to return to the sweat, toil, and stress of coaching? Well, the answer lies in Bill Parcells' past, where for more than a decade, he strode the ramparts of the NFL and twice tasted the ultimate victory. To feel the thrill once more, to build still another team in his likeness and watch it soar, that to the man they call Tuna would be incomparably sweet. Paradise regained.